You know how your food delivery app, your ride-sharing app, even your banking app, they all just work, right? So seamlessly. Well, there's a secret behind all of that, and it's called an API. It's basically the invisible engine that powers our entire digital world, and today, we're going to pull back the curtain and see exactly how it works.
Okay, so just think about the last time you ordered food on an app. You tap a few buttons and boom, like magic, dinner shows up at your door 30 minutes later. But what is actually happening behind that screen? I mean, how does your phone, the restaurant's kitchen, the payment system, and the delivery driver all talk to each other so perfectly? That's the conversation we're going to decode right now.
To really get this, we're going to follow one single food order, from the moment you open the app to the moment it arrives. It looks so simple on your screen, but trust me, behind the scenes, there is a super fast conversation happening between a bunch of different computers.
So look at this journey. First, you search for McDonald's, right? The app shows you a list. Then you pick one, and it shows you the whole menu. You add your fries, your burger, the app confirms it's in the cart. You check out, it gives you payment options, you pay, you get a confirmation, and finally, you can track the rider right to your door. Every single one of these steps, it's a tiny little conversation. You ask for something, the app gives it to you. It's this constant back and forth dialogue that's happening at lightning speed that makes it all possible.
And that's really the key here. Each step is a request you send and a response you get back. It's the most basic pattern of how the internet works, honestly. A request goes out, a response comes back, all happening in milliseconds. So, what's carrying these messages back and forth? Who is the messenger in all of this?
Well, that brings us to the messenger that makes this whole conversation happen, the API.
Okay, so what is an API? It stands for Application Programming Interface.
Now I know, that sounds super technical, but don't worry, let's just break it down. Application programming is just a fancy way of saying building software. The real keyword here is interface. An interface is just a meeting point, you know? It's where two different things connect and talk. So an API is just the official set of rules for how two pieces of software are allowed to talk to each other.
Here's the best way to think about it. An API is like a waiter for the internet. Seriously, when you're at a restaurant, you don't just walk into the kitchen and start shouting your order at the chef, right? No way. You talk to the waiter. The waiter is the intermediary. They take your specific request to the kitchen, and then they bring the food back to you. The API is that waiter. It takes your app's request to the server, the kitchen, and brings back the response, which is your data.
And here's a little secret about the apps you use every day. That food app, it isn't just one giant app. Not at all. It's actually a bunch of different services all stitched together using multiple APIs. For example, it uses an internal API to get its own restaurant menus and prices. But then, it uses the Google Maps API to track the rider's location. And it uses another API from, say, Visa to process your payments securely. It's like building with Legos. APIs let developers snap together these powerful pre-built pieces instead of having to build everything from scratch.
Okay, so if the API is our waiter, how do we actually place our order? Let's dive into how to make a request. Think of it like filling out a very specific form to make sure you get exactly what you want.
A proper API request has 4 key parts. You've got the endpoints, the method, headers, and parameters. Now, they're all important, but to really get the big picture, we're going to focus on the first two, the endpoints and the method.
First up is the endpoint. This is just the specific address for the data you want. I love this analogy. Think of it like an aisle in a supermarket. You don't just go to the store and yell, "I need food." You go to the /fruits aisle for fruit or the /meat aisle for meat. The endpoint tells the API exactly which aisle to go to for the information you're looking for.
Okay, next step is the method. And this is the action word. It's the verb of your request. It tells the API what you want to do. The most common one is get. That's just reading data, like asking for the menu. Then there's post, which is for creating something new, like when you officially place your order. You've got patch, which is for updating something, like if you need to change your delivery address. And of course, delete, which, is for when you realize you ordered something by mistake and need to cancel that order immediately.
All right, we've sent our request off with the waiter. So how do we know if the kitchen got the order right? Well, that's what we'll cover now, how to read the response. So, the big question, did the request work? The very first answer you get is in something called a status code. It's this little 3-digit number that instantly tells you what happened.
Now, you don't have to memorize hundreds of these codes. You just need to know the basics, which are all about the first digit. If the code starts with a 2, like 200, that's a success. Everything's good. If it starts with a 4, that's a client error. That means something was wrong with your request. Basically, it's your fault. And if it starts with a 5, that's a server error. The problem is on their end, so it's their fault. It's a really simple way to know who to blame.
And this is the one you always want to see, 200 OK. It is the most common success code. It's the API giving you a big thumbs up, saying, yep, got it, everything worked perfectly.
And then there's probably the most famous error code on the entire internet, 404 not found. You've all seen this one. It just means you asked for something that doesn't exist. It's like asking the waiter for a menu item that the restaurant stopped making years ago.
Now, assuming you got a good status code like a 200, the response will also include the response data. This is the good stuff, the actual information you ask for. It usually comes in a format called JSON, which stands for JavaScript Object Notation. It sounds complex, but it's just a really clean, organized way to structure data that's easy for both computers and, honestly, humans to read.
Okay, so that's the theory. But how do developers actually work with this stuff in the real world? Let's move on and check out some of the tools of the trade.
And what's so cool about this is that you don't have to be a hardcore programmer to start experimenting. There are tools like Postman, which is basically a playground for APIs. It lets you send your own requests and see the raw responses without writing a single line of code. And then there are entire marketplaces like Rapid API, which is like an app store for APIs. You can find thousands of pre-built APIs for weather, payments, you name it, and just plug them right into your own projects.
And this really gets to the core of why APIs are such a game changer. Just like Hiro-Kan says here, APIs have become very easy for front-end developers to build more complex applications and implement specialized functionalities. It's all about not having to reinvent the wheel every single time. You can stand on the shoulders of giants. So at the end of the day, what are APIs? They're the invisible backbone of our entire connected world. They're the silent messengers, letting all your favorite apps talk to each other to create those seamless, amazing experiences that you and I love and kind of take for granted now.
So there you have it. You now know the secret language of apps. What you thought was magic is really just a conversation. A constant, high-speed flow of requests and responses happening all around us every single second. So now that you understand the language, what conversation will you start?